Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Phillies Talk Podcast. I'm Corey Seidman, joined by Jim Salisbury. We are brought to you by Team Toyota, and there seem to be some developments here in the baseball world. Some rumblings that have come out this week, Jim, about a potential July 1 start date. Obviously, everything is fluid and dependent on the nation decreasing its coronavirus cases and increasing its ability to test people quickly. What are you hearing? You hearing any legitimacy to the July 1st thing, or do you think it's just one of many options on the table right now?
Well, I'm hearing legitimacy to the early July thing. I haven't heard anybody put a July 1, 2, 3, 4 on it, but early July is a hopeful target to begin the season. As it's been, I've talked to a lot of people over the last few weeks, and baseball would like to be in spring training, quote unquote, sometime in June, and like to be playing games sometime in July. But as far as having something completely etched in stone, not yet, because they're waiting on clearance and guidance from government and health officials, CDC and local governments and states getting open. So right from the get-go, when the Phillies packed up and left Clearwater, Andy McPhail, the club president, said that they're going to take all their cues from the experts, and they're still taking, baseball in general, still taking its cues from the experts. So if they're given a go-ahead, they'd like to be in spring training sometime in June and playing games in July. But they realize that, any flare-up or hotspot could have things shut down again. So they're still at the mercy of the virus and looking for the guidance from government and health officials.
In South Korea, which began its regular season this week in the KBO, they're trying to play 144 regular season games, like the normal schedule. But you do the math on, baseball schedule, like say, even if things started on July 1st and teams played literally every single day from July 1st until the end of November, that's still not a full season. Obviously, there could be double headers, and, the double headers could then be mitigated by actually having days off. You're going to need a few days off here and there. Thinking about how long this could extend to, the potential of playing baseball in December, what's your gut feel? Do you think we're headed for 100 games, less, more, something around there?
I've heard everything from they're hoping to get 60 to 80 games in to proceed a postseason, or 80 to 100 to proceed a postseason. They really want a postseason. They really want to crown a champion. Whether or not they have to make some adjustments to the postseason format, probably, and that would be fine. But postseason can be very lucrative and help them recoup some revenues, but they know they can't have a postseason without having some type of a representative season. So I've heard everything that they're hoping from 60 to 80 or 60 to 100 games. They're going to have to limit off days and whatnot. I'm skeptical of them going too deep into December. I think it's going to mess up the offseason too much in terms of free agency and arbitration and building your roster for 2021 and player recovery. Players need time, but obviously they've had some downtime on the front end here. I think they'll extend the postseason. If we get going, I think they'll extend it farther into the fall. But I don't know that they're going to be messing too deep into December. I just don't think it makes a ton of sense. But they'd like to get going, Corey. Everything I hear is, there was that 30-team quarantine, the 30 teams in Arizona. The players don't want that. Now I'm hearing they don't even want the 10 teams in Arizona, 10 teams in Florida, 10 teams in Texas. Players want to play in their home ballparks. They want to live in their in their in-season residences in those communities with their families. We've heard about playing in your home ballpark with some realignment of divisions, in which the Phillies would play against the Yankees and the Orioles, and 10 teams on the East. I hear the players favor playing in their home ballparks and loading up in division, within their division, limiting travel. I hear that there's not even a great appetite among the players for realignment. We will see. Nothing is firm yet, but we could be headed toward, opening ballparks, no fans, and playing a whole bunch of games in your division. Keep the travel close because, off days are going to be limited. But again, we're going to see. Nothing is certain yet. I mean, Pennsylvania has to open up for two teams to play. I see where, the Prime Minister of Canada says the NHL players are going to be subject to quarantine rules. And I'm assuming that's 14 days. That's going to affect the Blue Jays. Very high mortality rate in New York. Detroit and Chicago are deeply affected. So there's still a lot of hurdles to overcome in this, but everybody seems pretty hopeful that they'll get going.
Why do you think players are opposed to realignment? Do you think it's because they're just creatures of habit, or is it because they're used to the pitchers in their division, and now this is like getting used to an entirely different set of competition?
I don't know the answer to that. I've only talked to a few of them, and they seem to favor staying in their division and, with a shortened schedule, just loading up in the let's say you play 72 games. Play the majority in your division. I guess if there has to be some crossover, there has to be some crossover. But they seem to favor right now staying. The ones I've talked to favor staying in their league. But they also tell me that, nothing is firm. I mean, they're subject to how it all shakes out. It's all subject to negotiation. They're going to have a say in it. The ones I've talked to favor loading up in the division, keeping it kind of simple like that. But I don't know the exact reason. The reason I hear is they just want to keep it simple. They're going to lose off days, keep the travel simple, play your teams in your division, and don't cross over so much as you would need a complete realignment.
Jim, you talked to Cole Hamels this week. It was a pretty cool interview, and there was a lot of reminiscing about 2008, which we'll get to in a few weeks when we start re-airing these 2008 playoff games. So stay tuned for that. Before we get Cole Hamels' thoughts on the season ahead, I wanted to ask you about free agency. So baseball itself is losing a lot of money this year. Teams are going to be losing a lot of money. There will be cost-cutting measures put into place in some organizations, and I'm wondering how that could potentially affect this offseason's class because, you have the top tier guys like Mookie Betts and JT Realmuto. I'm still pretty confident those guys are going to get their money. But like the next wave of free agents, like DeMarcus Semien, DeMarcus Stroman, Robbie Ray, Jake Odorizzi, it seems like there might be less money in the overall pool for guys like that because of the circumstances, right?
Oh, I think that is almost a sure thing. I mean, they're going to lose significant revenues this year. And revenues, it's going to affect what teams have to shell out on free agents. There's no question the revenue pool will be down, and that will be reflected in what teams have to spend on free agency. I still think your big market teams for the right player are going to do what they have to do, i.e. the Phillies and JT Realmuto. But yeah, it's going to affect things. I mean, remember 6-7 weeks ago, I wrote that story and I took kind of a lot of heat from it from a lot of folks on Twitter and stuff, suggesting that, if this thing doesn't get off the ground this year, maybe JT Realmuto's played his last game as a Philly. And I kind of laid it out that shorter season, possibly less risk of injury because he's not on the field as much. Just the fact that he'd be closer to free agency might, entice him to take a run at free agency and get out there and test his worth find out his worth on the open market. On the flip side, it could be risky because there might not be as much with revenues down. There might not be as much for teams to spend on free agents. So kind of a balance. But yeah, I do think revenue is going to be affected, and on some teams, probably the bulk of teams is going to be reflected in what they can spend next winter.
Well, another guy who's going to be a free agent is Cole Hamels, who signed a one-year deal with the Braves. And Jim and Cole Hamels sat down earlier this week. Here's Cole on the uncertain 2020 season ahead.
Cole Hamels, this is I guess you could say baseball season like we've never seen before. You guys were sent home from spring training. What was it just surreal when you heard that baseball and spring training was being shut down by this virus?
I did. I mean, because first off, you wonder, you're like, well, where are we supposed to go? And everybody's like, just go home. But I think for me, I was, in the midst of really kind of getting back and coming back from the shoulder inflammation that I had. And so, I was working out 6, almost 7 days a week. and then they tell you to just basically go home, and that kind of makes it impossible to build back. Thankfully, because of FaceTime and Zooms and everything, I do my quote unquote kind of rehab throwing program, lifting program now almost 6 days a week over the phone because we're not allowed to come in contact with anybody. So I was able to stay down in Florida just because the weather was so nice. And that was kind of something where I just, we had a great spot. My family was there, and I trained 6 days a week. After that, I would become a homeschool teacher and then a lifeguard in the pool. So, it's you start adding that sort of personal stay at home sort of level that, you're used to probably seeing with your significant other. And now I'm filling in that role. It is surreal. I mean, I guess a lot of guys that I've talked to, they've always say, hey, how do you like that pre-retirement? This is what retirement's all about. And I'm like, I'm not there yet. I still want to play, and I know I'm still capable of doing it. But at the same time, I'm really enjoying these moments that I have with my family that I don't think I would ever have that opportunity to have.
I spoke with Chase Utley the other day, and he is also presiding over some homeschooling. He said he was the head of the math department. What is your academic specialty?
No, that's me. I'm math. I've always been really good at math and history and kind of that social studies, geography, and right now with my kids are, I'm learning about the Underground Railroad and the national parks, and so Disney Plus has been key because they've had these National Geographic, national park wildlife parks that we've been watching. So my kids are getting on two fronts, the best education possible, I guess you could say.
So, spring training, the old cliche is that spring training is really for the pitchers. That's why it's so long, 6 weeks. You guys can build up your reps, your arm speed, your arm strength. If and when this thing gets going again, how much spring training are starting pitchers going to need to get going?
I think each of us will probably need 4 starts. I think that probably would be the case. And then you just have to anticipate that guys are not going to be going past the 6th inning. If they get to the 6th inning, that would be like a 9-inning game for starters in the beginning for maybe a month or two. I think that's why the extended roster kind of needs to be there, is to protect everybody, because it's not only like you're playing for this season, you're playing for 2021, 2022. You got a lot of guys that you want to have bright futures that are probably young. You obviously have guys that you need to fill innings, but it's not the same way right now. And you still want to see baseball, because baseball is America's pastime. It's one of the most amazing things to be able to watch and partake in and have your family and be around. So it's something that we definitely need.
Are we talking a month of spring training, or do you think you guys need a full 6 weeks?
No, I would say probably more close to a month. I think that would be good, just to kind of get into the swing of things. I think getting used to the fact that we probably might not have fans. So to start games and get used to the fact that it's going to be kind of that weird, eerie silence, because you want, even though it's going to be on TV, you want guys to be at their best. And this is going to be a weird dynamic for players who are so used to having fans in the stand and feeling energy and knowing big innings and momentum and what that does, to then learning how to control your environment with no noise and no excitement. I think that is going to take practice. And that's why I think the month for the pitchers to build up, the hitters to get their reps in, and then for all of us to get used to not having fans for a while, because we want to put the best products out on the field for fans to watch, because it's one of those things. And they're going to have to be receptive to that fact that there could be some things that are going to happen that we're not accustomed to doing. We're not doing it on purpose. But just to hang with us until they can kind of get back in the stands and then add that extra jolt of energy to all of us.
Yeah, and I've talked to you many times. You're a guy who feeds off the fans. I mean, you mentioned it throughout the 2008 postseason, how you got that jolt of adrenaline from the fans. And I would imagine every pro athlete, even an actor on Broadway, gets that adrenaline and an extra push from the audience, from the fans, from that enthusiasm and that appreciation that people have for your work. Are you going to be able to summon the adrenaline needed to perform in an empty ballpark, you and your major league brethren?
I think, and that's what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a form of entertainment. I love being a professional athlete, and I love being so fortunate to be able to do it. But I know we're doing it for a reason. We're doing it because fans want to see us. We want to distract from what's going on in the real world and give them hope or give them something to focus on. That's what we are. Because of that, it is. You have to realize that this is probably the biggest tryout of everybody's career. So I think that's where you're going to have to focus on the adrenaline and the excitement. This is a showcase for us personally, because if you're in arbitration, if you're a rookie, if you're like me, a 1-year contract, this is the biggest showcase that you can show at one of the most difficult levels, because you don't have that extra boost that you are going to have to get it together and do it. And there's nobody's going to hold your hand doing it. And nobody's going to have, you can't create an excuse. We have to do it for ourselves and our teammates, and we're going to have to figure out how to do it together. And knowing that there is a great group of fan base for every city that really needs this the game of baseball, and they want to be able to watch us be able to do what we do. And, at the end of the day, have a playoff and a world champion, even if it's in a shortened season. That's still the intention and the mentality that we have to have, is to win a World Series, no matter if it was 100 games, 80 games, who knows? It's, we're giving them everything we can to enjoy baseball.
Gut feel, are we going to have a baseball season of some form?
I do. I really think we're going to have probably a half season, and maybe they'll get creative with the postseason, which would, I think, be interesting. I think that might be something where they try some stuff, but they have to understand that we have to be receptive to it, and we just can't think that this is going to be the norm, and we can do this in the future. Everything has to be negotiated. It really does, and it's for the integrity of the game, for what we've been able to create, what the league has been able to create, what the fans want, and what the players have been able to create. There has to be a balance, and there has to be agreements.
Any one plan that you like more than the other? I mean, they talked about putting all 30 in Arizona. Then they talked about, 10 in Arizona, 10 in Texas, 10 in Florida. Now they've talked a little bit about playing them 10, 10, and 10 in home ballparks. Anything that Cole Hamels favors and thinks would work?
That's tough, because I know, there's a lot of risk involved with these owners and stadiums, and you have a lot of people that want to work and need to work, and you want to give them the opportunity. Every city, everybody needs help. I think to start it, if that's the case, you could do the 10, 10, and 10, and I know try to figure, but we need to make the effort to be able to get to those 30 stadiums. I mean, really do, and then hopefully in the end, add it to where fans can start to kind of be there, and I know that does depend on what the CDC and everybody agrees to, because you want this disease to go away. We don't want it to linger, and it's something about going to a stadium and being able to enjoy the full amount of what that has to offer. You want people to be able to see again.
Okay, so Cole Hamels, a veteran pitcher there, thinks that pitchers are going to need about a month, 4 starts worth of time to get ready. So when could we be looking at this spring training too, Jim?
Well, if everybody gets kind of their wish, they could start spring training sometime in the month of June. If you look at 4 starts, that could be like, just over 2 weeks, but they're going to need a workup to those 4 starts, because, I mean, they've been out now close to 60 days. They're going to need to throw their bullpen sessions. A lot of guys are still doing that, but they're going to need bullpen sessions, with educated eyes looking at them under supervision. You need to face hitters, and then you're going to need, you're going to have to get your work in exhibition games facing real hitters. So close, I'd say 3 weeks to a month, they're going to need that amount of spring training. Hitters are going to need some time. Hamels made the point that, out of the gate, you're really going to need that expanded roster, because guys are only going to probably go in 6 innings. You got to protect those pitchers. You don't want anybody getting hurt. So I'm curious to see where spring training would be. I mean, they obviously need spring training. Like I said, they've been out. We're pushing 60 days now. Question is, do teams return to their southern spring training sites in Arizona and Florida, or do they train in their home ballparks? A team like the Phillies, I think, could train in their home ballpark if they needed extra diamonds. They have, Lehigh Valley. They have Reading. You could exhibition against a few against the Orioles. You could maybe exhibition against the Yankees if you had to, if you wanted to stay out of the National League. But I think of teams like Seattle and Colorado and even Arizona and Phoenix, regular season Arizona. Those teams don't have ball clubs right around the corner, 80, 70 or 80 miles away that they can go play. So they might, prefer to return to their spring training homes so they can get those exhibition reps. The other thing is, will they just say, okay, we're not going to have exhibition reps. Teams are going to just play themselves. I don't know. Another factor I think a team like the Phillies has to consider is they invited a whole bunch of non-roster guys into camp. And, I was looking at their roster the other day. They're still at 53 guys. That's a lot of guys to bring to Philly and use essentially one diamond in your home ballpark. So they might need the big, the more roomy facility in terms of fields and whatnot in Clearwater. So all of that is up in the air. And I'm sure they're talking about all of that. But, again, nothing that I've heard is firm. All those are just, options and legitimate options at the moment.
Cole Hamels' comment about starting pitchers, like when you go 6 early, it's going to be the equivalent of going 9 innings under normal circumstances. That just got me thinking that the teams that are built around their starting rotations could suffer in 2020 because starting pitchers could have less of an impact on the game. I mean, it almost seems like the teams that have really good bullpens might be at more of an advantage. Like 2 teams that stick out to me is the Cincinnati Reds built a pretty good rotation this offseason from last trade deadline till here. So their rotation is far ahead of their bullpen. Then you look at like the Brewers, conversely, their bullpen is much better than their rotation. Do you think that we could see the league kind of the balance shift based on bullpens this year because of starting pitchers going fewer innings?
Well, I think bullpens have been important for an awfully long time now, pretty much this last decade plus. But I actually think, for the first month, bullpens are going to be very crucial. But eventually, starting pitchers are going to get their legs. And maybe on a shorter season, once, they are ready to go and they're themselves, they could actually carry more of a load because teams are envisioning a shorter season. So I think you can kind of look at it, both ways. Another interesting comment that Hamels had is the fans. He's talking about how these guys feed off adrenaline, and that's going to be a major adjustment. He really articulated that as strongly as I've heard anybody. How spring training, you're going to need the hitters are going to need their reps, pitchers are going to need their time, but he was saying that players are just going to need time to get used to what do you say, the eerie quiet or the eerie silence of the ballparks. And I guess that's going to be an adjustment because these guys feed off the big stadium with the lights and the third deck and the buzz of the crowd. They really feed off that. And once this thing starts without fans, these games count and they matter. And a guy like Hamels is pitching for his next contract, and guys are Real Muto, could be playing for his next free agent contract if he doesn't sign an extension. And there are guys playing for arbitration deals and just guys playing to survive. So you're going to have to figure out a way when you cross those white lines that in your mind, and it won't be hard the first few days. You're going to know you're in a real game the first few days. But once you get 7, 8, 10 games in, you're going to have to remind yourself that this stuff counts. This is not spring training. This is not a practice session in a big empty ballpark. This stuff counts, and people are watching, and your future contracts and earning power depends on it. So it will be an adjustment for the players and pretty much all of them who rely on the electricity of a ballpark to give them that extra spark. We talked to Billy Wagner the other day, and he used to throw bullpen sessions at 93, 94. And you talk to him, well, what, Billy, you have a triple-digit fastball. He said, that can't come out until the lights are on and there's a real big league hitter there, but that can't come on until I have the adrenaline of a big league ballpark and fans. So it really does matter, and I do think that will be an adjustment for players.
Jim, something that came up this week, I found it pretty interesting. So Bryce Harper is typically like a ball of energy on the field, but off the field, he's pretty low-key guy, doesn't really get too high about things. But he was on Barstool's Starting 9 podcast this week, and he –
Hold it. He wasn't on Phillies Talk?
Nah, unfortunately he wasn't. But
what the heck? Can't you pull some strings?
I'll try. But so he I don't know if this was planned or not, but the topic of the Olympics came up, and Harper was really passionate. Here's what he said. He said, you want to grow the game. You want to really take it to different countries and different places. You put baseball back in the Olympics, but let the big league players play. Can you imagine being in a foreign country, standing on the line, listening to your anthem blare? Dude, there is nothing better. It fires me up sitting here. There's nothing better. USA across your chest, just absolutely put a pounding on another country, and you're standing there saying, what's up? It's such a travesty to me. I'm not saying this as disrespect to minor leaguers, but the 2021 Olympics are in Tokyo, and you're not sending big league guys. Are you kidding me? There was more there, but what's your reaction to that?
My reaction is kind of layered. I have several reactions. One, MLB understands the importance of promoting the game worldwide. That's why they partnered in founding and developing the World Baseball Classic, which American-born big leaguers are very lukewarm to. They don't even consider it much of an event, as shown by their reluctance to participate. So, what about the WBC? Maybe show that level of passion for the WBC, and you'd have what you're looking for there.
But like worldwide, the WBC, it doesn't really quite have the same allure as the Olympics. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with it, but they're trying to promote the game worldwide. I've always thought the WBC was founded. One of the reasons is because they want to unlock China as a 50 years from now as a talent base, and introduce the game there, and because China could help drive some huge revenues if you get fans there to fall in love with the game, as they have with basketball. It's a future market, but the Olympics are very tough, and I hope baseball's in the Olympics. I'm all for promoting the game worldwide as much as possible, and I agree they should be in the Olympics as a promotion vehicle. It's just very, very hard to send your big leaguers to the Summer Olympics because you're talking shutting down or losing marquee guys for 3 weeks from a big league schedule. And I don't know, though owners are in favor of the WBC because as a promotional vehicle, I don't know that they want to lose a Bryce Harper for 3 weeks. I don't think you can take him out of a team for 3 weeks. It would really hurt the integrity of that team. So I just think it's tough. It's very difficult to do in terms of scheduling.
Well, what would be the harm of baseball?
You can't shut down the big leagues for 3 weeks because you think you're going to grow the game in the future in the Olympics. You're going to lose all those revenues at the moment, and those revenues help you pay the marquee guys like Harper and those top guys. It's a real kind of a catch-22. You want to promote the game, but the Olympics, it's tough to send your top guys. You can't shut down, lose the revenues, and still pay those guys what they want to make, at least in my opinion. You'd have to, I don't know, maybe they could send baseball players to the Winter Olympics, but the Winter Olympics usually happen I'm kidding, obviously, but they happen in February. You can't have the Winter Olympics in, hey, look, it would be great. I covered the Salt Lake Olympics in, was it 02? And I was assigned to the hockey tournament. That's all I covered. My hotel was right next to the arena. I walked there every day, and I watched unbelievably great hockey. And the reason it was great hockey is because the NHL sent all their top players. I mean, Lemieux was there, Roenick was there, Chelios, Matt Sundin was playing for Sweden. I mean, I saw these great players. But the NHL shut down, and I'm sure it's a give and take. Did the NHL take a hit? Probably. Was it worth it to promote the game worldwide? I don't know, because they really haven't. I don't think they do that quite as extensively anymore. So it's real. It's a tough call. I really admire his passion for promoting the game. It tells you a little bit about Bryce Harper, that he's really got he's a ball player, but he's got that kind of business mind. He's always thinking how about the Bryce Harper brand, and the baseball brand. And I think his heart is in the right place. I just think it's going to be tough to pull off.
Well, would this compromise work? Would a compromise work if baseball did shut down for 3 weeks in the middle of the season, but just extended the season by 3 weeks at the end? You could start earlier to have those additional 3 weeks still be in decent weather Doesn't hockey do something similar to that where the season kind of shuts down every 4 years?
I don't know if they do it every year. I remember they did it a few years ago, and they did it that year in Salt Lake. I don't have my ducks in a row on that one. I just think it would be hard because the Olympics are typically what month? July, August?
Yeah.
So, your pennant races are taking shape, your trade deadline, and you have over 700 players. So you're going to be sending maybe 32 to the Olympics, 35. I don't know what the roster size would be. What about the rest of the players? Are they supposed to shut down for 3 weeks and then start back up? I just think there's a lot going on there. Hey, always the dollar sign rules the day. If they figure out that they can make money off this and not lose, obviously if they figure out they cannot lose money and maybe make money off it while promoting the game, and then it would be great. But I just think there's a lot of challenges.
Yeah, there are a ton of considerations here. It doesn't seem feasible at all that baseball could have major leaguers back in the Olympics in 2021, but perhaps sometime later in the decade. It's clear that Bryce Harper and some of the other players in his peer group and age range feel similarly to him based on the responses he got when he posted that 2-minute video to Instagram on Thursday. So that's going to do it for this edition of Phillies Talk. For Jim Salisbury, I am Corey Seidman. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you early next week.